We think we know about the splendor and luxury of life during the time of Henry VIII, but how much do we really know about the people who made it possible? In this series, we bring you the hidden lives of Henry VIII's servants, where there was more going on than met the eye. The king's servants were not just faceless workers. They had their own dramas, secrets, and rivalries. We'll be taking a look at some of the lesser-known stories of those who served the royals, revealing a world of intrigue, betrayal, and hardship that existed behind closed doors. Episode 2: A world of backbreaking work. Life for a servant in Tudor England was anything but easy. The hours were long, and the work was back. A typical day started before the sun rose and ended well after it set. Menial jobs, like scrubbing floors and polishing shoes, took up a significant portion of their day, leaving little time for anything else. It was a thankless task, and servants rarely received praise for their hard work. In fact, they were often scolded for not working quickly enough or for not working at all. The constant pressure to perform took a toll on their mental health, leading to exhaustion and even despair. But these are the things we already know. What might come as a surprise is the shocking treatment meted out by fellow servants. In the Tudor era, the servant hierarchy was as rigid as any other social class. Upper servants like valets and ladies' maids enjoyed more privileges and better pay than their lower-ranking counterparts. However, this did not stop them from engaging in acts of sabotage against each other. For example, a valet might purposely soil a lady's maid uniform to humiliate her, or a cook might intentionally undercook a meal to make the head servant look bad. These acts of revenge were common and went unchecked, as servants were afraid of being punished if they reported their fellow servants. This created a toxic work environment where trust was non-existent and suspicion ruled. It was a catty world of backstabbing and gossip, reminiscent of high school hallways rather than a professional workplace. In this cutthroat environment, one had to be cunning to survive. A clever servant could use flattery and manipulation to stay in the good graces of the upper servants and avoid becoming a victim of their wrath. However, for the less cunning, life was tough. They were constantly on edge, knowing that their next meal or their next assignment could depend on the whims of their fellow servants. It was a dangerous game to play, but it was a necessary one. To survive in the turbulent world of Tudor servants, one had to be willing to do whatever it took to get ahead, even if it meant sacrificing their dignity or their morals. It was an age-old story of survival of the fittest, but played out in the kitchens and hallways of Tudor palaces rather than in the wild. As we continue our journey into the hidden lives of Tudor servants, we'll see how far this backstabbing extended, exposing a world where no one was safe and everyone was expendable. Episode 2: A web of lies and deception. Henry VIII is a legendary monarch, infamous for his 6 wives and his love of lavish feasts. But what went on behind the scenes in the Tudor kitchens? What secrets and betrayals were taking place amidst the pots and pans? Servants who worked in the kitchen were not only responsible for preparing meals, but also for keeping track of who ate, what, and when. This information was then used to calculate the cost of the food and to ensure that no one was eating too much or too little. It was a delicate balancing act, and those who failed to do it properly were often reprimanded. But it was not just about the food. Servants were also expected to keep the royal family's eating habits a secret. Gossip could spread quickly in the palace, and any slip of the tongue could have serious consequences. A careless servant who revealed too much about the king's diet or eating habits could find themselves out of a job and in hot water. In the Tudor era, the king's food was not just food, it was a symbol of power and status. By keeping secrets about the king's eating habits, servants were protecting the reputation and dignity of the royal family. It was a test of loyalty and discretion, and those who passed were rewarded with continued employment and a place in the inner circle of the palace. But it was not always easy. Servants were human, after all, and they had their own desires and ambitions. Some may have been tempted to use the knowledge they gained in the kitchen to advance their own interests, while others may have been pressured by outside forces to reveal secrets that could be used against the king. Despite the challenges, the servants who worked in the Tudor kitchen were up to the task. They understood the importance of their role in maintaining the secrecy and dignity of the royal court. And so they kept their eyes and ears open, their lips sealed and their knives sharp, ready to defend their secrets with tooth and nail if necessary. Episode 3: The games servants played. Life as a servant in the Tudor era was not all work and no play. In fact, servants often found ways to amuse themselves, even if it meant bending the rules or even breaking them. One popular pastime was gambling. Servants would bet on everything from the outcome of horse races to the results of card games. Gambling was a way for them to relieve the boredom of their everyday lives and to win small amounts of money that they could use to buy luxuries that were otherwise out of reach. They also engaged in various games, both indoors and outdoors. At a time when toys were rare, servants would use their imagination to create fun. They would play games using household items like chairs and tables, or they would go to the gardens or the nearby woods to play hide and seek or tag. Sometimes they would even sneak into the royal ballroom and dance the night away, pretending to be members of the nobility. This was not without risk, however, as they could be caught and punished severely if the royals caught them dancing. Still, the thrill of the forbidden was too much for some servants to resist. In addition to these activities, servants also found ways to entertain themselves by spreading gossip and rumors. The palace walls were not just filled with the sound of footsteps and whispers, but also with rumors of secret affairs, hidden identities, and plots to overthrow the king. While it may seem harmless to us today, gossip was a dangerous game to play in the Tudor era. It could make or break reputations and even lead to the downfall of a noble family. Yet servants could not help themselves from getting caught up in the drama of the royal court and the juicy rumors that swirled around it. From the grand halls to the secret passageways, the Tudor palace was a microcosm of society, where power struggles, secret affairs, and betrayals were commonplace. It was a place where the rules were bent and broken, where secrets were exchanged, and where lives were changed forever. And through it all, the servants were not just witnesses, but active participants, playing their own games and making their own rules. Episode 4: Unlikely Friendships. Life as a servant in the Tudor era was not easy. Long hours, low pay, and a lack of personal freedom were just some of the challenges they faced. However, despite the hardships, servants were able to find moments of joy and companionship in the most unlikely of places. One example was the friendship between Thomas Wyatt and Elizabeth Blount, a young woman who served as a lady-in-waiting to Anne Boleyn. Wyatt was a member of the royal household and Blount was a servant, which meant that their paths would cross frequently. They would have likely met while Wyatt was delivering messages or attending to other duties in the royal court. Despite their different social positions, they developed a genuine affection for each other. Their friendship may have started out as polite conversation and small gestures of kindness, but soon blossomed into something deeper. They shared stories about their lives, their dreams, and their fears, finding solace in each other's company during difficult times. Wyatt and Blount's friendship was not without its challenges. The rigid social hierarchy of the Tudor era made it difficult for people of different ranks to interact. There was a clear division between the servants and the nobility, and any association with the wrong person could ruin a servant's reputation. However, Wyatt and Blount were willing to risk it all for their friendship. They knew that their bond was special and were not going to let societal norms tear them apart. Unfortunately, the couple's romance was doomed from the start. Their friendship became a point of contention within the royal court, with many nobles disapproving of Wyatt's association with a mere servant. Eventually, the pressure became too much, and the couple was forced to part ways. Blount was banished from the court and Wyatt's career was ruined. Despite the sad ending, the story of Thomas Wyatt and Elizabeth Blount reminds us that love and friendship can blossom in the most unexpected places. Even in the midst of the Tudor era's rigid social hierarchy and cutthroat power struggles, two hearts can still find a way to connect. Next time on Hidden Lives of Tudor Servants, we'll uncover more tales of intrigue, romance, and betrayal as we delve deeper into the hidden lives of Henry VIII's servants. Don't forget to hit subscribe to join us on our journey through history.